Hey everyone, welcome back. We are diving into some really fun concepts today with using dissociation or spiraling, how I like to call it, for our balancing during pivots. When we're thinking about pivoting in tango, especially if you're a follower, this is one of the most fundamental techniques that we have to know, we have to be able to do really easily. Some of us do them in heels. So this is going to be a crash course on some of the most important aspects of learning to balance during pivots. And because there are so many details involved in this technique, I invite you to pop your questions in the comments as they come up as you watch this video. And let me know if any of the things that I'm covering need to be explained a little bit further. Because as I said, there's a lot of bells and whistles when it comes to pivoting. But if you didn't watch my last week's lesson on dissociation, I highly recommend you do, because in that lesson, I talk about what dissociation or spiraling actually is in the body and how to do it in a way that is integrated and in harmony with your anatomy, your natural mechanics. Today, we're taking that and applying it to standing. Because as you remember, in the last episode, we did a lot of things sitting, where we're just looking at the rotation of the spine. Now, we have legs to use in our dance, and things become more complicated. Now, to revisit some of the ideas from last time, when we're thinking about what is the natural range of motion that my spine is going to spiral when I'm going into my pivots, this is going to be that range we discovered last time by sitting on a chair with the hips sort of fixed in one position, and then I use my torso to turn side to side. And as you see here, I have about a 45-degree range here. So if this is 12 o'clock in front of me, when I turn to the right, it's about 1:30 at the most. And when I turn to the left, it's about at 10:30 or so. So that's going to be your range. That means that any time that I step into a position for a pivot, that's going to be my extreme rotation. That's as far as it's going to go. So whether I'm going into a forward ocho, about to pivot, going forward, or I'm stepping back for a back ocho, I will be expecting that I'm going to turn to that degree at the most. I'm reiterating that because a lot of times we get into this habit of actually over-rotating and causing more problems down the line. So establish for yourself that that's going to be as far as you go. Now, there are a couple of things at play when we are rotating in space on our feet. We're not just sitting on a chair anymore. And that is, we can very easily collapse into this spot here that I've been talking about, this T12, when we are on our feet. It feels very natural for me to step and exaggerate this sort of opening up top here. And so my pivots might look like this, where I'm really exaggerating this coming forward. The problem with this is that it makes you heavy in this direction because some of your weight is committed already to the front. So you'll find yourself falling a lot to that next step. If you're feeling that sensation of stumbling, a lot of times it's this. Now on the back step, this also becomes a problem, is that if this comes forward, then when you're stepping back, you're going to reach the foot first and then go. So then it ends up looking something like this. Now notice once again, this line here is what we want to avoid because it's flattening out our thoracic curvature and preventing us from actually dissociating. So when I'm stepping into a back step, which a lot of times we do that with the left foot going back, and we'll go into a back side forward, a very common position here. Watch that you don't want to go into your back this way and go side, that when we're going into that back step, I'm remembering that feeling of being in a boat, that I have an oar and that I'm pushing the boat along. So as I'm with my partner, when I dissociate and spiral, I'm going in, I'm bringing my rib in here instead of out, okay? So this is the first piece that you want to watch when you're dancing and you're pivoting. You want to watch that for your technique, this part of your spine, this little place here, doesn't poke forward. Now the second point you want to watch in your dance is where are your feet landing? Because you'll be surprised that a lot of times the reason why you're losing balance in pivots is because your steps are misaligned or your steps are too big. So if I step forward and make a really large step here, do you see how automatically this pokes out as a way for me to deal with that because it's too big of a step? And I'm having problems with balancing as well. So by me forcing a certain size of step, I will actually distort the alignment up top. And a lot of times the reason why this comes forward is because of forcing a really big back step. All right, so if I emphasize in my head that this back step needs to be really big, I'm going to automatically go into this range. So instead, what we want to do is originate the motion in the top part of the body. So in the spine, I want to feel my rotation, and then only allow my foot to go as far as my rotation here and my alignment here holds. So my size of step is going to depend on what's going on here. Right now, when I dissociate it this way and I'm about to step back, this is very comfortable. I arrive completely on my axis, and now I can go ahead and rotate to go back. As I go back, once again, I'm turning towards my partner at that 45-degree angle. My ribs are closing. This is my right rib going to my left hip. And then when I reach for that step, it only goes as far as my alignment up top is allowing me to go. And then I go back. So when you have your alignment correct and your step size correct, you'll be able to do the pivots without really needing a lot of support from your partner. And you'll be able to arrive on your axis and have a lot of control. So what you want to always, the 2 points you want to relate in your pivots are between here and where your step is. So as I step here, I really want to make sure I'm not straining the line between these 2 points, that I'm allowing myself the space to rotate fully to 45 degrees and no more. I'm not poking up my ribs, and my step is comfortable enough that when I arrive, I don't have to struggle for my balance. Now, obviously, because we are on our feet, we're standing, we're moving, it is absolutely the case that we want to keep the knees a little soft at all parts of the pivot. So anytime that I am in motion on pivoting, I'm going to be thinking about my knees being very soft and receptive so that the rest of the spine can organize on top of the foundation that I've established. Now, I know some of you are asking, well, how much are you supposed to dissociate when you are pivoting for an ocho? What is the exact degree that you're supposed to twist? It's all going to depend on the context. When you're in close embrace, you're not going to dissociate or spiral very much because you're really close to your partner. When you're in open embrace, you're going to dissociate more. Sometimes you're going to do something very extravagant and do some sort of an over-rotated back ocho and back saccada, those things can happen in every scenario. You're going to adapt your alignment and how you're putting your body in relation to the other partner. But the fundamentals, 90% of the time, are going to be there to sort of support you as the foundation. So you want to have this range where you're not over-rotating your spine beyond its limit. And if that means that you can step without very much spiraling, so here I'm stepping and I'm not really dissociating a lot, that could be a possibility. And then sometimes you might have to dissociate it a little bit more. In a different tutorial, I'm going to go over the different degrees of dissociation you can have through your body. That includes the shoulders because it's very gradual. But that's really for another time. What you want to remember, whatever degree of spiraling you do, your goal is to distribute the effort among as many parts of the body as possible, so that when you're moving, no one part of your body is strained in any direction, because our goal is to arrive very relaxed and ready to go on the next step. We don't want to miss out on any balance while we're transitioning. So the spiral is there to help distribute that work among the different parts of the body and make it a smoother transition. One more thing I'll say about dissociation is pertaining to boleos, whether we're dealing with a front boleo or a back boleo. The same principles apply, that your goal when you're twisting for a boleo is to allow the spine to twist easily along its range that results in a boleo. So for a back boleo, for example, whether I'm doing a boleo that's very low to the ground, this would be sort of a position for a low boleo. I'm slightly turned here. Notice my degree of turning. That same boleo can become a high boleo here or even higher. But notice what I've done. I've actually come forward to accommodate that. I didn't bend my spine. So the whole premise of keeping the integrity of the spine holds here, that we want to keep the same spiral, the same action. I'm still bringing my rib to my hip as I go forward, and my leg is going up behind me. I'll show it from this angle here. So it's not like I'm bending forward, but it's like, you know, I frequently think of the discus thrower, the sculpture, if you've ever seen the famous Italian sculpture of the discus thrower from my days in art school. Same thing. When I'm reaching for a boleo, as I boleo, there's a spiral going down this way here. And it's very much that it's closing this way. So whether you're doing a forward boleo or a back boleo, you're still going to be working those same mechanics, okay? So play around with these ideas. Let me know what questions you have, and we'll see you next week. Until then, ciao.